So my testimony really lies in the last 5 years since the Lord's return. I remember watching on the news, on Fox News, that live broadcast where, you saw the return. And it was back in January 2011. I was living alone in an apartment in Jacksonville, Florida, chasing the PGA Tour, or trying to, make a living playing professional golf. That was my dream. That was what I've always wanted to do since I was a kid, and that was what I chased basically my whole life, about 21, 22 years old. And that's really where this all started, because I was right about that age when the Lord came back. So for me, I started to really question my environment. I questioned a lot of the things that I was being taught. I just wanted to study, I wanted to learn more, I wanted to know what was really going on in the world. Because at that initial glance, something didn't feel right. Something was off with my environment, and I needed answers. See, growing up, I had scripture. I was taught it. And I actually thank my parents for the incredible foundation that I have. I don't think I'd be here today if it wasn't for them. And I'm truly blessed by the Lord for what I've been giving in my life, and I thank Him for that. Looking at the book of Revelation again with my eyes a little bit more open, now I started to see, holy smokes, these things are playing out. In 2011, I had a conversation over email with my father about Comet Elenin being a huge sign of the end days, and about how it was obvious that we were coming into those times, and that time was short. And I just saw a lot of the big factors in play. And the exact day after we had this conversation is when that earthquake struck Washington, D.C., that 5.8, which left a crack in the Washington Monument. The very next day that occurred. And I grew up in the D.C. area, Northern Virginia, and that's where my father was still living at the time. And he felt the earthquake. He was at work when it happened, and he felt a little shaking. And man, that kind of freaked me out right there. Yeah, I didn't really know what to think at that point. It started becoming very real, what was going on. And I'm an amateur meteorologist. I've been studying weather since the age of 5. I've been studying geology a little bit too, but mainly weather and thermodynamics. And my big specialty is global weather patterns. I like looking at the big picture. I like seeing how everything is connected. So the bulk of my testimony lies in what I saw going on this planet. There's the rapid, sudden change in everything, almost with the snap of the fingers in 2011. It started with that big tornado outbreak that occurred in the southeastern United States, and all the tornadoes that occurred that year. It started with the impressive heat that several areas around the planet started seeing. Blood red waters, floods, massive wildlife die-offs. All this just started happening right away. People claiming that they're seeing something else in the sky. Look, all of that was happening right at the same time. I was witnessing all of it. Didn't really know what to think about much of any of it, other than something just didn't feel right about any of this. I noticed that these storms were, the big ones that were having much of an effect. They started taking, the dead aim at cities. I would use the same words that the commander did in their videos, because that's exactly the way I perceived it. That's exactly the way I saw it. I remember in 2012 when Hurricane Sandy hit New Jersey, I almost thought that was a direct message towards me. One of the beaches that got completely wiped off the map, the one that the whole world knew about after Hurricane Sandy, because they all saw the images of a roller coaster sitting in the middle of an ocean, that was one of the favorite vacation spots, and I've ridden on that same roller coaster any number of different times as a kid. And to see it sitting there in the ocean, something just felt extremely weird. And all of this is happening like at the same time that the Mayan apocalypse is supposed to be coming up, and all those predictions were coming out there about Nibiru and what it's supposed to do. And the odd thing is the way that storm tracked, how it just took a left turn against the normal flow of air. And if you look at some of the water vapor imagery that came out of that storm, after that storm, you can see it was turned out, over the Gulf Stream, and then it was just kicked right at the end. It was like God just went boom right in and just blew it right into New Jersey. I mean, time and time again, I watched just the weirdest incidences. 2013, you have a tornado that wipes Moore, Oklahoma, off the planet again. You have in that same month, in 2013, a tornado which takes a weird turn and runs multiple tornado chasers off the road. That's unprecedented. All of the big hurricanes they seem to just track right at strategic locations. It was like a military operation was playing out. January 2014 is when I saw the UN WikiLeaks. It was this video that came up constantly on my YouTube stream. On the right side of the screen, it was in those recommended videos, and it just said, UN briefing on alien god arrival or whatever, and I was just like, yeah, okay, I'll believe that. So I saw it for probably like a month and a half, 2 months maybe, before I finally clicked on it, and I was like, all right, what's in this thing? Because if it's nonsense, if it's BS, we'll be able to throw it out, but at least we checked it off the list. And then I saw the Fox News video as the first thing that came up on that video. The same video that I watched 3 years prior to that, live, and didn't think anything of it at the time, and now all of a sudden my jaw hit the floor. I didn't realize in that title that it was actually talking about Christ, and that it was talking about biblical things, very biblical events. And I'm sitting there flipping through the book of Revelation as I'm going through this thing, like, what the heck? It's all matching up. It's all lining up. Every little piece to the puzzle. And the video is covering all of the storms that I had been tracking, that I had been following. It's tracking all of the earthquakes and the volcanic activity, instances of volcanic eruptions. It's talking about all the solar storms. It's talking about everything, how it's all linked together, and the extraterrestrial presence here on Earth as well, how it's a biblical event, and that it's not evil, it's not some thing that's, just sinister or anything like that. No, it's real, but it's a holy presence, a heavenly presence. And I didn't really realize it at the time, but all of these things that I was witnessing were attributed to Christ returning. I was floored. I wanted nothing more than to just study this, go through every video, because I mean, this has been going on for 2-3 years now. I wanted to get up to speed and watch everything as quickly as possible. As soon as I started getting into it, I watched the Lord's Address, I watched the other videos, and I was just, it was everything that I had ever wanted in my search for truth and for information and knowledge. It was divine timing. It had to be, looking back on it. It was the push that I needed to get me moving, because not having even been in the congregation a day, I asked to serve. I wanted out of this world, and I wanted into Christ's world, and I wanted to be in the divine service. A week later, I'm on the road to Baja. And I wasn't even in the congregation less than 8 or 9 days before I stepped foot in Baja and was meeting Kelly and Clark and a bunch of the guys that were with us at the time. Eric, Logan, and I, we made that drive together. We just met in somewhere in Alabama. We're both living in Florida. He's from Florida. I was living there. We met in Alabama, and we just packed everything up and we hightailed it out of there and didn't look back. All of the proof is there, but to me, the intangibles are what makes it. And a person really has to search their heart to find the ultimate validity in the claims that Christ has returned. You know, he's put down our life for us. We owe him everything. At least that's the way I feel. The world owes him everything. But I don't know why people refuse what is ultimately going to be best for them. You know, a person has to be really willing to work, to look outside the box and just make an assessment of the world we live in and think, man, we can do so much better. We really can, but we have to be able to trust the leadership that's been appointed to bring us in the direction that we can be on, that we know in our heart of hearts is the right way, the correct way. But we spend so much time arguing about, you know, what is the correct way, what's the best way, and it doesn't do us any good. There were 2 commandments that he gave from Lord RayEl himself, because he is Yeshua returned, and when Yeshua was here 2,000 years ago, he made this abundantly clear. 2 most important commandments is to love our Father in heaven and to love your neighbor as you would yourself. And today he says the same thing, love God and love each other. What is so difficult about that?